The dictionary defines a dream as a series of thoughts, images, and sensations occurring in a person's mind during sleep. They have long been a topic of spiritual, religious, scientific, and even philosophical interest. They can never truly be defined, so the meaning behind these following dreams are up to your speculation. This one was submitted by Erin Langheim. I have multiple reoccurring dreams wherein I am consumed by hordes of baby spiders. I'm not even afraid of spiders. I'll willingly pick up and release even the slightly intimidating wolf spiders that live in my area without fear. But for some reason, I keep having this happen in my dreams. It comes without warning and ends everything. It kills me, of course, but I die in a number of my dreams. But it isn't always this repetitive and specific, or vivid. I can feel them sink their soft, half-formed fangs into my flesh, the venom spreading slowly through my body as my flesh is ripped apart and consumed piece by piece until there's nothing left to devour. There isn't even time to scream as thousands of them rush into my lungs, shredding me from inside out until nothing remains. Morgan Penumbra's dream. It starts off with me delivering a present to this child. The gift was a glass orb full of marbles which he was supposed to shake, and with it had an accompanying white helmet, though I wasn't sure what the helmet was for. The first scene of the dream is the child playing with these things. He's shaking the orb and twisting whatever knobs the white helmet had. He seemed to be having fun playing with these odd toys, and how this scene was shown seemed to be similar to how a commercial would be presented, with various fancy camera angles, shots, and such. After a few minutes of this, my perspective of the scene changed. I was now looking directly at the child's face. His head was jerking violently to one side, as if he were having spasms. The toys he was playing with before seemed to have disappeared, and at that time I didn't care because I was just so confused with what I was seeing in front of me. The view of the scene later zoomed out of the child's catatonic face to show that he was placed inside a futuristic life pod of sorts, being encased in a metal shell with a glass window for me to see the child clearly as we floated just outside the Earth's orbit. The pod was connected to this stereotypical caricature of a Martian alien, with its giant head, lanky physique, and greyish-green tint of its skin. For some reason, I somehow knew that the alien was dying, and that was why the child was connected to it. Apparently, I had just sold the child to the dying alien as a sort of extremely expensive pacemaker, and his twitches were representative of this alien's heartbeat. I remember I said something to the alien along the lines of, "This is expensive and all, but you know this won't last for too long using it." The alien later did die and detach himself from the human child pacemaker as its corpse drifted off into space. The child was still in the pod, but he looked deformed. He had turned into this mass of pulsating muscle with prominent veins bulging from his skin. At the time, I thought that this whole endeavor was a waste of life, especially since my alien client still died either way, making this whole thing seem pointless. Then I decided to turn the pacemaker into a space motorcycle with the mindset that I was recycling something broken into something new and usable. This one's from On Fleekachu. I was lying down on my bed trying to figure out why my phone wasn't working. That's when I saw it out my window. A flash of blue light. It honestly didn't register at first, but when it did, I was already out. When I awoke, the world seemed to have a dark tint to it, as if someone had put a black sheet over my eyes, but I could still see through it. I looked around to the best of my ability. I have a basement room, and from what I could tell, not much of my house remained. What little of it did was in my room. I called out to my dad, but to no avail. I rummaged a bit through the rubble to find my kitten, Mabel, dead. I don't know why, but wherever I was going, I had to take her with me. I made my way through the debris to my window and crawled out. My suspicions were confirmed. A bomb had gone off in Port Horan. There was barely anything left. The sky was so dark, and even the wind had small bits of black blowing within it. It smelled like chemicals and burnt hair. I turned, making my way down the 10th Street towards the water. I could see the river from afar, as a trace of buildings that would have blocked my path. I wish they were still there. Bodies, hundreds and hundreds of bodies floating in the river. Some of the corpses' skins were white, transparent and bloated, while others were black, charred and peeling off. I took in the sight the best I could. The bodies in the river reminded me of the River of Styx. The burning factories in Canada just beyond the horizon contrasting the black sky above it. Would the fallout rain there too? As I stood in the middle of the street holding my dead Mabel, I remember thinking, this is what hell looks like. Abandon hope, all ye who enter, I mumbled to myself. I had a twisted sense of humor that never failed me. Things couldn't get any worse than this, right? That's when I heard it. A voice that'll haunt my dreams. It was a child crying for her mum. But this wasn't just any child. It was my 2-year-old niece, Anna. And she was in the river. This next one is by Brian Prime. I was in a dark mansion. It was night outside. Only candlelight illuminating the interior. Things are outside, running by the windows, quick and menacing. For some reason I can feel the malice when they go by. I have a Beretta in my hand. My clothes are torn, and next to me are the kids I babysit for my friends. There's a huge door ahead of us, and the kids are telling me that it's the only way out. But I can see something's in there. Something big and hungry. I can't leave the kids in the hallway. If I do, the things outside the windows could break in, and I feel as though I can't take them in to face that creature. But before I can make a decision, I wake up. This last one is a personal dream that I've had. Now, my memory is terrible, so I don't expect it to be very long or very detailed, but I'll try my best. It's daytime, in a wooded area that seems to have a paved path going through it. On the right side of this path are piled up rocks, held back by mesh. Above this wall continues the forest, with leaves, trees, and dirt as far as the eye can see. I'm completely alone, which is unusual as I only tend to go to these places with my dogs. Not for protection, just simply because I don't tend to go out all that often without them. I remember feeling as though I was looking for something. Something specific, something really interesting to me. Then I recall that I'm actually out here searching for a big cat. There are no native species of large feline in the UK, and there have been a few sightings of ABCs, alien big cats, introduced leopards and panthers which have not yet been confirmed. But the idea, although dangerous, is very, very interesting to me. After a while I do end up encountering the cat. By the time I actually see this fairly sizable puma swiping, hissing, and snarling from the rocks, we're suddenly entwined in combat. Now, in reality, it's unlikely that any human being on Earth would last longer than a few seconds against one of these creatures. But somehow this fight isn't completely one-sided. As the animal tears into me, clinging onto me by digging its claws in deep, trying to get at my neck, I fight back, punching, wrestling, and even biting the cat in return. In the moment, I feel a mixture of fear and exhilaration so melded together that I can't tell them apart. Throughout the fight, I somehow managed to get my arm around the puma's neck into a sleeper hold, all the while being scratched and bitten to hell. Looking back, it sounds hilarious, but in the moment, I felt as though one wrong move could mean death. From this position, I find my feet, and with it I dislodge the cat from my body and throw it towards the wall. The puma, looking no worse for wear, takes up its perch on the rocky wall, where it continues to hiss and growl just as it did before. though this time it remains there and doesn't attack, leaving me scarred, bloodied, but incredibly prideful. And that's the last I remember. Although in this dream, it was indeed a fight for survival, where I could have died at any moment. I guess it's only when you're in the jaws of death do you truly feel alive. Okay, that statement was a bit lame. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you have an interesting nightmare you want to share with us, leave it in the comments, or send it to me via Twitter. My only request is that you proofread it and use proper grammar. This has been Nature's Temper, and I'll see you next time. You monsters.